always do that, don't I? Ah! Well, that just goes to show you. Sometimes things don't go the way you expect it to. Try this again. Trying again. Trying again. Ah. Having an issue with software. 1 second. Okay. Give me a minute. Hold on. There we go. Hi, Kaiser Demon. Hi, Fisher. Let's do this again. I had this all nice and prepped. It's annoying. Reminder to self. Fix that next time. Welcome back to the latest anime news for the week ending March 16th, 2018. Oh man, do we have some news this week. New anime are busting out all over. First off, to my shock and joy, you're not going to believe this. Yeah. Boogie Pop is back, baby. Celebrating the 20th anniversary of this psychological anime franchise. A new anime series will launch this year, and here's what it'll look like. It'll have a new cast of voice actors, and interestingly, almost all of the major staff, director, chief writer, character designer, worked on One Punch Man. Not sure who looked at that show and said, you know, hey, hire them for Boogie Pop. Weird. But that's not all. Boogie Pop is also getting 2 new manga in Japan. One's an adaptation of the Versus Imaginator storyline, and the other's an adaptation of the origin story Boogie Pop at Dawn, which is pretty darn cool. So lots more Boogie Pop coming soon. As if that wasn't enough, Seven Seas will be bringing out the first 6 light novels in the Boogie Pop franchise in the US. They will squeeze them into 2 volumes in print. One containing the first 3 light novels and the second containing the other 3, which kind of makes sense. While you'll be able to buy them individually on digital services, so 6 individual volumes digitally. Seven Seas published 4 of these some years ago, but had to cancel the line due to lack of sales. So it's back, which is pretty darn cool. Okay. I think that's enough Boogie Pop news to satisfy even the most diehard fan, I think. But it is not the only new anime announcement. Sunrise clarified earlier news around Tiger and Bunny. A new anime TV series in the franchise will come out this year, titled Double Decker Doug and Kirill. Not only that, this buddy cop style detective show will be just one part of a larger Tiger and Bunny anime project. Who knows what that means? Much of the prior staff is returning. From shonen aimed at an older audience to shonen aimed at a younger one, the Cardfight Vanguard train just keeps running, with Bushiroad announcing not just one, but 2. Oh, that's interesting. But 2 new anime series. One looks to be another main entry in the franchise, while the second will be based on the mermaid idols of the Bermuda Triangle in the show. Mermaid idols. Can't even make a joke here. Anyway, we won't be able to judge it for quite a while. It is scheduled to debut in winter of 2019. So, little ways to go on that. Oops, sorry. Anyway, we're still not done with new anime announcements. PA Works revealed they're working on a new fairy tale anime series called Iroduku Sekai no Ashita Kara, or From the Color-Changing Worlds Tomorrow. Yes, it's anime. It'll be directed by Toshiya Shinohara of A Lull in the Sea, Black Butler, and the Book of Bantora, with Fly of Kimono Friends designing the characters. That looks beautiful. Can't wait to see what that turns out to be. Meanwhile, okay, yeah, so that's the end of the new anime announcements, except for this one. Anime Central, the convention, announced that it will screen the, one second. It'll screen for the first time a new short film that reboots Gunsmith Cats. Originally a manga, the OVA was released fairly early on in America and centers on 2 female bounty hunters in modern Chicago. Well, modern as of when it was made in the 90s. It was remarkable for being a manga and anime set in America accurately. Should be interesting to see where that goes. New short anime film rebooting it, which is quite interesting. Finally, see here. 1 second. Actually, not quite finally. Need to pull this up. Having some slight visual images issues here. There we go. Also, a new anime announced this week was Black Fox. Not much is known about this particular anime series, just sort of a key visual here. It's kind of Kill la Kill-ish. Will be coming from a group called, I believe, 3 Hertz in Japan. So who knows what that is. Yes, more new anime coming. Finally, Kyoto Animation fans finally have a date for the premiere of Kyoto Animation's Violet Evergarden, which we've been waiting for quite a while. The new anime by the legendary studio behind Haruhi Suzumiya, K-On!, Free, and Sound Euphonium has been locked behind a Japanese-only wall for months. But now we know that not only will it be available to North American viewers April 5th, it is listed as Season 1. Very interesting. So that's the news for the week. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys next week. And I will be back in just a moment after these words from Superman.
Police headquarters. Hello, Chief. Send the riot squad. We're in trouble.
Hello, Planet. Give me the city.
Proceed for the men at once. Chief, Lois is in the museum. Better get over there, Kent. Right. This looks like a job. Superman. Lois.
Superman.
You'd better go back to your office where you'll be safe. Got some work to do.
Yes, sir. And this the best story in years? Well, chance.
Stay put.
Yes, my lord. And thanks.
showed plenty of courage getting that monster story, Lois.
Thanks, but where were you?
Me? Oh, I must have failed.
So there was a fun little bit of classic cartoons there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Welcome, everyone. Derp, Liquidus, Kaiser, Fisher. Good that you're all here. Good timing, too, because I'm about to do the giveaway. That's right, early in the show. Unusually, got this plastic-covered box set of Inuyasha. There's the back of that. Rather nice bootleg chipboard here. Quite pretty. And then you've got your stuff here. No other inserts, just the disc 1, disc 2, and 3. No idea how much is on these discs. That is just kind of the way things are. So yeah, I'll be giving this away to someone in the chat room, whoever's top on the chat room here in a few minutes. Meanwhile, how are you guys doing? What have you been watching and being involved with anime-wise? I'm quite curious. It's been a busy week for me. Not hugely busy, but a lot of work on 3D printing and other projects. Also getting my taxes done this week. That was fun. Not. It was just the kind of the thing you got to do to make sure things are working. I owe a lot this year, unfortunately, but I'll pay it. I'll get it done. Just one of those frustrating things. Meanwhile, let's see what else we have to talk about. So just so you guys know, got a review of Wings of Honneamise tonight. If you didn't see the video, we will be doing I do have a dramatic reading tonight. It's about Gundam. It's pretty funny, and we'll talk about harem anime and some interesting harem kind of on the edges as well. And then you get, yeah, you're right, Liquidus. You've got definitely Lost World in the 20s, and King Kong, in the 30s. So this is probably, and King Kong there were dinosaurs on King Kong Island too, by the way. So that would work. Incidentally, for those of you who haven't watched it, give the original King Kong a try one of these days. It is a surprisingly well-structured and taut film, given how old it was. And it's not that, old movies are bad. It's just that they were still figuring out the medium that far in the past, especially a special effects movie. And King Kong really holds up. You have to acknowledge that it is paced differently than in a modern film. But taken on its own merits, it is a very impressive ride. Monster Hunter, I hear that. I will probably get into Monster Hunter this weekend. Looking forward to that. We'll see how it goes. I know I'm going to be doing, I think I said I would be, let's see here, did I promise I'd be playing a video game this Sunday? I think I said I'd be playing some video game on Sunday, but I don't remember what's on the list. Oh well. All right, let's go ahead and do this giveaway. So here's the DVD. It will go to whoever's top of the chat in the next 10 seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Fisher, congratulations. You get a copy of Inuyasha, subtitled in Chinese and English. There's a hint. So yes, you will be getting this. If I can get that information from you in the Discord, just go ahead and join. Fisher, you're on the Discord, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check that. I actually don't see Fisher in the Discord. Fisher, have you joined the Discord at any point? You should be on there somewhere. Weren't you? Huh. Let me know. But definitely join the Discord. So, yes, congratulations. Okay, cool. Let me just check in the Discord then for the PMs. Yep, there it is. Cool. Very good. Cool. I will ship that out tomorrow morning then. Very good. Welcome, Kaminoko. Good to see you. We just finished the giveaway. Sorry. But we are going to move now rather quickly into the review segment. I think we are. Do you hear that? I think
These research studies explain how film experience may help students learn increased amounts of new information, which is remembered longer, and which therefore may be applied efficiently to problem-solving situations as pupils progress from lower to higher grades. In the intermediate grades, the need for providing real experiences about things studied continues. Good teaching methods include the use of pictures, the chalkboard, models, and charts, usually before the learners turn to the pages of books for information. Some of the pupils can recall experiences of their own about pupas, larvae, and insects, and they can describe them to their classmates as they refer to charts like these. But for all the children in the classroom to really understand how things move and grow and develop from one stage to another, something else is needed. Something which can bring living experiences right into the classroom. Experiences that are as lifelike as reality itself. What would happen if sound motion picture films were added as study materials in this classroom?
Many years ago, a group of fans began making garage kits, selling fan merchandise, and organizing conventions. They made friends with some animators and asked them to animate opening sequences to their conventions. One of those sequences was the legendary Daikon 4 animation, a sweeping, loving tribute to all of science fiction and fantasy. That animation impressed so many people that those fans approached Bondi Visual about making a movie. And not only did they get a budget, but based on the strength of the teaser they made, they got a budget of what would today be $11 million, the highest ever budget for an anime film until that time. Pretty darn impressive. Those fans then named themselves Studio Gainax. They went on to make such influential anime series as Neon Genesis Evangelion and Nadia and the Secret of Blue Water. But their first major work was this film, released in 1987, Royal Space Force, The Wings of Honneamise, which I will be reviewing right now. It's an alternate history film, in a sense, as it focuses on the space program of a fictional nation on an alternate Earth. Its culture is wildly different than anything on Earth, and the staff of the film reimagined almost every aspect of daily life, from coinage to clothing. However, they avoid the mistake of over-designing everyday objects. It just feels like this is a culture as different from any modern culture as medieval Japan's was from, say, medieval Europe. One of the high points of this particular work is the budget. They spent, again, $11 million on this film, and it shows. Characters move with a weight and detail that is rare in animation, period, much less anime. It's a bit of a shock to see crowd scenes where everyone's moving and subtle approaches to movement. The direction is very clear, and this is actually an interesting thing. The camera angle is usually positioned in a very conventional way, similar to this, on the same plane as the characters. Ordinarily, this would feel dull over the course of a movie, but there's so much detail here, and it creates such a subtly different world than our own, that the movie benefits from this simplicity. The viewer needs a recognizable camera angle to feel grounded and to let the eye roam the frame for all those details. That's also important because Honneamise does not tell a traditional shonen or otherwise sort of story. The main characters are all adults, and the protagonist is a young man trying to find something to believe in. So much of your time is spent studying the characters' faces to understand their reactions to things. This film requires its characters to express complex adult emotions, which is one of the things that's frankly kind of shocking about it. It's not One Piece. This is more like Apollo 13. As such, the film lives and dies partly on the audience's identification with the main characters. And here we enter some difficult territory. A lot of viewers just plain don't like the main characters, based on what I've read. The protagonist is a kind of a shiftless pilot for much of the time, something of a jock, who spends a lot of time with a religious girl who's often kind of a doormat. Worse, and I tell you this because it's a trigger for some, there is an attempted rape scene partway through the film that comes out of nowhere. It involves the main characters, or at least one of the main characters, and it can feel troubling if you don't fully understand the film's messages about its characters. It is shocking. But this is a film about adults, and adults are complicated, often contradictory creatures. Indeed, the dialogue demonstrates this beautifully. Each character has very distinct speech patterns, a testament to the writing. Every character feels unique. And this gets to one of the difficult things about Honneamise. On the one hand, it's a visually stunning film about a space race of massive rockets and tense equipment tests, things like that. On the other, it's a character study of two people who aren't typical epic heroes. The film goes out of its way to avoid tropes in its characters, and this can make this film difficult to appreciate. Ultimately, it's kind of like an art house film. Honneamise feels like it is trying something very unusual and very thoughtful with what it's doing, while also trying to be visually spectacular because it's animation, right? In animation, you can kind of do anything. So this is something of a film that divides viewers. Some people love it, some people hate it. Much like Mamoru Oshii's work, come into this understanding that this is a very different film. But I think if you understand that and come in, you will find a gem. It might not be a gem that's exactly for you, but it's a gem nonetheless. So that's my thoughts on Honneamise. There. We'll go on to the dramatic reading momentarily. Hey, Matt. Good to see you. And before I do that, though, wanted to talk a little bit about the coming week and what's going on and chat with you guys a little bit, because this coming week is a special one. This Wednesday will be the 9th year anniversary of my being on YouTube. So the first actual anime review, the first video that I uploaded, there were some audio things I uploaded, but the first video I uploaded 9 years ago this Wednesday. So to celebrate that, I'm going to be doing a bunch of giveaways next Friday. I'll be giving away a lot of different stuff. I will be particularly giving away a framed anime cell to somebody in the chat. And I'll be giving that away like right at 9 o'clock. So you need to get here at 9 for a chance to win a framed anime cell I will ship to you. Unfortunately, that will be uneligible to folks outside the US, because it's going to be, I will need to spend like $50 to ship that just within the US. So something around those lines. So unfortunately, US residents only for that particular thing, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, yes, that's going to be a really, really big deal. So I have that planning on coming up. I'll do a bit of a retrospective probably on Wednesday about the channel, just kind of celebrating and doing all this and giving you stuff. We'll also be having other giveaways on Friday, scattered throughout the evening. And as part of that, the plan is for me to basically, instead of the regular schedule, next Friday, I'm going to be doing a Q&A. And I'd like to invite you all to post on the Discord. Hey, Raven. Please post on the Discord. And let me put up the, I think I have the Discord URL here. There we go. If you're not already part of the Discord, go ahead and join. And yes, Matt, I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to actually talk about that in a second. So yeah, so basically, if you're interested in winning anything, please join the Discord so I can actually get your information there. But also, let me know what questions you have that I would like to cover next week. And part of this is because I sometimes get questions in the middle of chat, in the middle of the live stream, or as like comments on YouTube that I'd like to go into more detail on. I'd like to do more research on, for example, and answer in some detail. And it's you know, it is essentially impossible for me to do while I'm in the middle of a live stream, and then it goes away. So that is the thing there. So please let me know what questions you have for next week, and I will dig into those and answer a bunch of those that week or that Friday, and I will also answer your live questions on Friday as well. So that'll be the plan there. I'll give you a quick preview. I'll show you also later on in the week. So I'll be giving away, among other things, Original Kino's Journey clock, which is kind of cool. You have to focus in on that. Doesn't want to focus in on that. That's funny. Always have focus problems. I was actually playing around with the camera today and found the position of the camera was a bit of a problem, but apparently... that's right, I gotta do this. And then it kind of, roughly, lovely little clock. Needs a battery, but still. Ooh. One second. There. I have an official new type 5-star stories poster, which is really hard for me to unfold entirely. Lovely artwork there. I'll also be giving away, take that tape, a Space Battleship Yamato model kit. And this is actually an original Space Battleship Yamato kit from like the 70s. So this is, you know, classic Yamato model kit. So it's pretty impressive, you know, kind of thing to have. Even if you're not going to build the model kit, it's history. So all of those will be given away next week, next Friday during that. Thank you, Headhunter. This is a nice cup. It was a gift from my D&D group, my main D&D group. So yeah, you all should be aware that all those are coming up next Friday is the plan there. All right, so like I said, we're going to move on to some other stuff in terms of dramatic reading. Dramatic reading is coming up, and so I need to prepare for that for a few minutes. In the meantime, here's a bit more of the history of anime. Gigantor, by the way, is the first giant robot anime series. Sorry, robot, not robot. He is actually part of, in the show, he is part of a program in World War II to build giant robots to fight the Allies. And they never made one that worked. He is the 28th iteration, 28th prototype, which actually worked, but they managed to get working in like August of 1945. So they had to like scrap the entire program. And then, you know, in the far future year of 1980 or whatever, they revive him and he fights bad guys. So you think this is 1963, and they're already telling stories about what do we do with these technologies and these things that we created as part of this war, but are still useful. It's fairly heavy for an anime series. Another important thing about Gigantor is that Gigantor is not piloted. There's a little kid with a remote, and he calls in Gigantor, and Gigantor flies in and beats up the bad guys. This is fun, but as you can imagine, a somewhat limiting concept for a story. Gigantor is literally literally a Deus Ex Machina, right? He just flies it at the end and saves everyone. You know, there's nothing else going on there. So this was the pattern for a lot of giant robot series moving into the future. It quickly became apparent that you couldn't tell very many interesting stories with that story structure. But we started getting more of these anime series. A perfect example of anime of the 60s and 70s would be Doraemon. Doraemon is about a robot cat from the future that comes back to this boy who will invent him at some point in the future. Nobita, there in the lower left. The anime started in 74, I think? Something along those lines, in the 70s. And they're still making more Doraemon today. That's how popular this anime is. And it is a perfect example of the kinds of shows you saw in that period. Bright primary colors, adventurous, completely episodic. Astro Boy was almost completely episodic. There are plot lines that kind of go over the course of multiple episodes, but it's mostly episodic. Gigantor's episodic. Doraemon's episodic. Fun and absolutely aimed at preteen children. Like, no question. You will occasionally come across anime fans, less often today than in the past, who will tell you that anime is this very serious medium really for adults, and it's always been for adults back in Japan. No. Anime at the start was for kids, just like it was for kids, for us, for a very long time. So, as the 60s moved into the 70s, they started adapting more genres into anime, particularly sports anime. Oh, I forgot about Sally the Witch. How about Sally the Witch? 1966 is the introduction of an anime series about a girl who lives in a magical world, magical kingdom, if you will. And everyone there has magic, and she's supposed to learn her magic, but she's bored. So she decides she's going to go down to Earth, to regular people, and have fun, and not have to study, and just play around on Earth. So she does so. She makes a couple of friends, girls her age, who accidentally get involved in bank robbery. So Sally has to use her magical powers to stop the bank robbers, and does so at the end of the episode. This is an anime series about a young girl with magic powers who has absolute and total agency for the entire anime series. She does everything for herself in this show. So this is the first shoujo series, first anime series aimed at girls. And it's also technically the first magical girl series, like she is a girl who can cast magic, right? It kind of depends on how you define it. But also importantly, because Sally has agency, because she is the one who is directing her story, that became the standard for girls shows moving forward. A few years later, indeed, we get the Secret of Ako-chan, and she has a magical compact. This is the first magical girl series in the modern sense, where she says one word, and then the magical compact allows her to change her appearance. I think she actually ages up too, so she becomes an adult with a certain profession. So she becomes, I need to become a newswoman, or I need to become a weather person, or I need to become a dancer, or whatever. So we started seeing the magical girl franchise begin to evolve. Again, all these almost completely episodic, almost entirely episodic. Then you started seeing adaptations of sports anime, particularly Shiro no Joe or Tomorrow's Joe. This manga was so popular. Just before the anime came out, one of the characters in the manga had died, and so they staged a public funeral. Hundreds of people lined the streets for a funeral that was presided over by a Shinto priest. Yeah, that was a popular manga series. And so they adapted that into an anime series. Now, what is the plot of every sports story ever? Exactly. There is a team that sucks, and then some kid comes in who's remarkably good, and now they have a chance at the championships. What is that? That's a story arc. As you started seeing sports anime adapted, you started seeing this idea that, oh, we don't have to do just episodic anime. We can have a story that the viewers have to tune into every week, because if you miss a couple episodes, you don't know why they're here instead of where you thought they'd be. And they started really changing people's thoughts on the kind of stories they could tell in anime, particularly as things were changing in Japan. These are those of the student riots of the late 60s and early 70s, where the high school and college-age students were concerned about a lot of things, particularly about how the Well, it was about the U.S. treaty on Okinawa and other things, but basically they were concerned that the Japanese government was at best this stale bureaucracy that never really got anything done, and at worst was like actively keeping secrets from its populace. You ever notice that any time a government shows up in anime, it is at best this stale bureaucracy and at worst actively keeping secrets from its populace? That's because pretty much everyone involved in anime, especially in that point, was either in those protests or had an older brother in those protests. Hayao Miyazaki, famously, was very much influenced by those protests. So a lot of these more serious themes started to build and culminate. Especially as you started seeing adaptations of work by Go Nagai. Go Nagai was making big waves in manga because he was daring to do slightly more, I hate using the term adult for what I'm going to talk about, but you know, boobs and blood and things like that in manga, which you didn't do because manga was for kids. And so he had a famous manga about a school teacher and elementary school students who was constantly being harassed by them. And you know, there would be a shower scene occasionally, things like that. And he would do giant robot stories where characters would get hurt and they would bleed, which again you didn't do. In some cases they would die. You did not kill off good guys in manga or anime at the time Go Nagai was doing it. Now that said, this is still definitely for kids. Look at their outfits, right? This is not aimed at adults, but it's introducing some of these slightly more mature themes into anime as his stuff got adapted, particularly as his mecha were piloted. And when your mecha is piloted, suddenly now the mecha is an extension of pilot. The mecha is essentially a character in and of itself in the fights and what it gets involved in. So now you can tell much more interesting, much more in-depth stories about your characters. We also got Cutie Honey at this point. So Cutie Honey is an android who fights this evil organization, and she has this great power. She can transform into lots of different outfits. Unfortunately, doing so shreds her current outfit. So she, you know, she goes to transform and goes completely naked for a few frames, and then transforms into the outfit. This is a terrible pun. This is a naked marketing ploy. This was meant to relate to the audience, just outright. And this is what made it kind of remarkable, is the fact that suddenly you now had anime that said, we can make anime for teenage boys, let's be honest. You know, this was clearly pushing up the age expectation of your audience, where 6-year-olds just were not going to care. And also part of this big thing was that, is it okay for anime to do that? Should anime be children? Was one of the kind of discussion topics of the day. Like, is this appropriate? Or should this stuff stay out of anime and in other things? But you couldn't stop the boobs, basically. What can you say? People want, so it's what happens. Also importantly, so the thing is, there had been fan service before this in anime. But this was where it was kind of like right in front of you, like right there, right? There was nothing subtle about this. It was baked into the character too. Okay, so let's come into the head. Release Battleship Yamato. That's into Star Blazers over here. So Yamato, it is hard to overemphasize how important Yamato is for anime. But I'll get to that in a second. The basic concept of Yamato is it's set in the future where an alien race has bombarded, is bombarding Earth with basically comets. What do they call it? The God from God concept. That who needs lasers and missiles when you just throw comets at a planet? So they've almost completely destroyed Earth's biosphere. That's Earth, by the way. But Earth gets a message from another alien race, and they say, we have a technology that can bring Earth back, but we're behind a blockade. You need to come to us. So the surviving people of Earth do the most responsible and logical thing. They dig up an old World War II battleship, pour a giant gun in the middle, make it a spaceship, and launch that. It's anime. By the way, the Yamato is an actual battleship from World War II. Yeah, this was history, if you will. It went out once to Midway, Oh. It did not last very long. There's a very I have not seen all of it, but there is actually a live-action Japanese film in the sort of vein and scale of Pearl Harbor about the Yamato. It was this doomed warship because it was incredibly expensive, but battleships were falling out of favor. The Japanese were, kamikazing into them, so battleships didn't make sense anymore. They built this giant battleship, and then it never really saw significant service. So the thing about Yamato is it's a dark series. It's a very serious, dark series about humanity is about to die. What are we going to do? Unfortunately, it's early 1970s dark, so it's pretty goofy at times. It can be very melodramatic at times. It's kind of hard to appreciate sometimes here. The important thing about Yamato is that college students and high school students would watch Yamato every week, and they get together to talk about it, and discuss the plot, and they form clubs. There were fans of anime before Yamato. Yamato created Otaku as a group of people who were getting together to talk about anime. Up until this point, okay, Tomorrow's Joe's coming out. He's fighting another boxer, right? You can talk about that. But Yamato really formed Otaku as a group, as a fandom, really. Okay, there we go. Now we have audio. Now that works. Okay, all right, now, here's the thing. Okay. All right, this is a dramatic reading of an anime post from 20 years ago today about favorite Gundam from someone called Israfel. Okay. Zeta takes the top spot. I love Zeta Gundam best of almost any anime. Then a toss-up between MSG and 0080. Then I think I quite possibly prefer Wing to Char's Counterattack. Least favorites? That's a little easier. X. X bit toenails. X sucked hot magma. X was, well, really hopelessly bad. Second least favorite? Well, there's no question that G Gundam made a horrible Gundam. However, it did not make a horrible anime. It was really both interesting and entertaining if one could bring oneself to mentally blot out the word Gundam associated with it. But since it was a Gundam, in that respect, it was all wrong. Oh, and here's my surprise kicker. Well, no surprise to those on the mailing list. I damned well hate 0083. The characters are unpleasant cardboard cutout standees. Gato has the personality of the pet albino catfish I named after him. Ko's just a nit, and Nina's loathsome. The mechs were lovely and all, and some excellent supporting cast did exist, but overall, I can't stand the series. Somewhere in the middle comes Double Zeta. Hilariously bad, even though it tried to sober up somewhere after episode 20. But the colors and character designs are so darn pretty it's like a drug. I can't hate it. F91, I had such hopes, but it bored me right out of my tree. Again, though, the colors and designs were fantastic. V Gundam was a really extremely good show in my estimation, but I don't love it as much as the ones I put in my favorites list, so it got relegated to this middle ground. And as for 8th, well, it has its virtues. It also has some unforgivable inconsistencies and rewrites of history, but oh well. It does feature some utterly, desperately obnoxious characters, but it's animated nicely, and some of the pictures of the mobile suits are just gorgeous, so I don't hate it. I'm giving it a chance. Good enough for your survey? Sorry I couldn't be more specific and just list them 1, 2, 3, but then Gundam's all about making you think, and the gray areas in between issues, so I couldn't just simplify. Well, I can say that Zeta rocks the planet, but I'll chill instead. Uh-huh. That's weird. So there's a dramatic reading for the night. Quick and easy. It's really interesting getting a feel for the speed of the teleprompter, because I'm still trying to figure out how fast I can talk and how fast I should talk for these sorts of dramatic readings, and you know, having some space to actually act it out is interesting and a little difficult. So still working all that out as the weeks progress. One of the things, as a result of the 9th anniversary, is I'm planning to just do a few things to improve the show in general. As you see tonight, I've got more interstitial segments and more stuff going back and forth. Derp, I find these posts on the news group Rec Arts Anime Misc, a Usenet news group, which was the way discussions happened, you know, 2 decades ago online. Just Google Rec Arts Anime Misc, rec as in recreation, Arts Anime Misc, 4 words, and you'll find the news group on Google News. Yeah, the rest of the posts this week on Rec Arts Anime Misc were actually, so Evangelion's coming out at this point in America. They're just getting close to the final couple of tapes are now being released in America, so folks are kind of building up to that ending and wondering what the heck's going on. A lot of fun. Let's see here. Otherwise, it's kind of general conversation. Oh, Princess Mononoke is about to come out in theaters at this point, 1998. So people are getting sort of excited and worried about that and what impact it's going to have on stuff and how Disney's going to be doing their Miyazaki releases. Have I watched Princess Sarah anime? I have never even heard of the Princess Sarah anime. Let me look that up. Little Princess Sarah, 1985. Nope. World Masterpiece Theater. Nope. Haven't come across it. Lots of World Masterpiece Theater shows out there, though. So there's, and I watched a handful of them. 30,000 Leagues in Search of Mother, Daddy Longlegs, a few others. Not all of them. Not all of the episodes, but bits and pieces of a bunch of those. Very sad. Most World Masterpiece Theater shows are sad. You know, I watched a few episodes of Heidi Girl of the Alps as well. Which Gundam do I enjoy the most? That's a good question. Wing. I absolutely enjoy Gundam Wing the most. It was my first Gundam. It is ridiculous and over the top. It is very political. There's lots of stuff going on. And it is just trying very hard the entire show. So Wing is just a ridiculously fun ride. And I mean ridiculously in a positive sense. It is just joyful to watch and experience, because they're kind of thrown there. If I had to pick which Miyazaki film do I like the most, Totoro, probably. You know, Totoro fits my values the closest. It is a film that that relaxes me more than his other films. It's not his greatest film. It's certainly not, I would say, his most complex or even his most kind of worthwhile film. Because Totoro is basically, you know, it's a nostalgic look at the past, and a nostalgic wish for how things used to be. And there's a place for that, but it's ultimately not challenging in any way. Really. Didn't like Katra? Yeah, well, see, the thing about Katra is that I think I can't say I like Katra. I mean, I like all the characters for what they are in the show. So, for example, Wu Fei is an absolute crackpot. I mean, he is almost... he's probably literally insane. Not figuratively insane, like literally mentally just wrong. And so he's kind of a frustrating character from that perspective because he's just way out there and does very way out there things. But he is there because, you know, part of the show is about fanaticism and extremism. And he is there to show you, you know, this is how far you can go in this. And that is someplace you do not want to go. So, you know, Katra's there for the same reason, is throwing in a character who ultimately does not, you know, ultimately just wants everyone to get along is a very different kind of perspective from and somebody who's still willing to fight for that is a perspective that brings an angle on the action that, you know, a lot of other Gundam series and a lot of shonen series in general, you have characters who are technically pacifists but still, you know, get in there and fight, whereas Katra retains his pacifism even in the middle of combat. And I think that's again an interesting thing. It doesn't make him a particularly necessarily enjoyable character in that perspective, but that's kind of the point of Gundam Wing, is to throw lots of different personalities together and see how they would react. One of the neat things about Gundam Wing, I think, is how much they shift around those characters and how much you have these characters together and these characters together and these characters together, and seeing what they think about each other. You know, that to me is something certainly not unique to Wing, but there's certainly less of that. You know, it happens a little bit in other Gundam series, but not as much. Yeah, Duo is just a fantastic character. He's a very likable character, but one with depth, with where you realize. I like characters who are in a sense uncomplicated on the surface, but where that uncomplication results from a lot of stuff that happened to them that made them arrive at this realization of, oh, this is how I should be. You know, somebody who is positive and upbeat and so forth for very specific, strong reasons. You know, Duo is not just kind of happy-go-lucky because that's entirely his personality. It is also something he learned over time through the tragedies he experienced. So that's one of the reasons I think he's an interesting character to watch. But Gundam Wing, again, it's a roller coaster ride. It is just things being thrown at you all the time. I think it's one of the reasons people love Code Geass. And I haven't seen much of Code Geass, but it very much feels like it is that thrill ride experience of just stuff constantly happening. So yeah, it all depends on what you're going for. One of the fun things about Gundam is you're going to find some stuff you love, some stuff you don't. But you will find stuff that you love in Gundam if you're willing to, you know, get past that hurdle of this big franchise and giant robots and sort of more serious science fiction. There is a Gundam for you, is the remarkable thing. But it's weird. We just don't get a big Gundam fandom over here in America. Okay, still taking recommendations, by the way, from you guys for a theme for the Great Debate, because I like to have something, you know, like a hat, or, you know, I know I got the hat for the news, and I've got the bathrobe for the dramatic reading, and so I've got to figure out something else to throw in here. Some folks have thrown out some good ideas before, but it's you know, I'm still trying to figure out exactly the right thing. So if you have any suggestions for something for that would be cool. In addition to all these other ideas. So let's get into the Great Debate and dive into this topic. I actually wanted to have a little thing up here. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and Code Geass also has that aspect of you're trying to figure out who's doing what when and why they're doing things, which I think is an interesting perspective, an interesting way of doing a show where it's, oh, this person wants to do this, but this person is against them, and it's a much more active set of antagonists and protagonists than a lot of anime series, which I think is against one of the frequent weaknesses of anime, is that the protagonists are often not very strong protagonists, right? In the sense that they throw themselves at problems. A lot of anime protagonists are fairly passive. And Code Geass is not about people who are passive. Folks throwing things together. Robo Nixon can't go wrong. Well, not against the idea. But it's kind of hard to have... Like, I might just throw up a green screen, but I know green screening cuts down the frame rate a lot. So I'm willing to do a green screening if nobody else has or if we don't stumble across if we don't stumble across the right solution. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something. We'll figure it out. All right. Oops, wrong thing. Welcome back to the Great Debate, everyone, where I wanted to talk a bit this week about harem anime and why it exists and why it's kind of controversial. And if you're interested in it or want to kind of dig deeper into it, some shows you might want to check out. So first off, let's define our terms. And this is actually one of the funny things. I came across a definition of this over on Anime Planet. How's this for vague? A harem includes 3 or more characters who potentially show romantic interest in a male protagonist. The sex, gender, or orientation of the harem members is irrelevant, as long as they exclusively, or at least primarily, are vying for the affections of the same individual, who may or may not reciprocate towards one, several, or none of these romantic rivals. And by the way, it's not necessarily a male protagonist. It's a female protagonist, often too. So, harem anime is about one guy surrounded by a bunch of girls who particularly like him, or a guy surrounded by guys, whatever, right? And that is sort of a subgenre within anime. However, this gets even more complicated. Going over to the Wikipedia entry, which gets weirdly into sociosexuality and gender binaries and just so polyamory and polygamy. It's weird. Anyway, so the interesting thing they point out is that romance is rarely the main focus of an entire anime series, which makes the harem structure ambiguous. So, and they say it's the most distinguishable trait is the group of polyamorous females and or males who accompany the protagonist, in some instances cohabitating, and intimacy is just about customary. Not sure what they're trying to go there, but it is never necessary. Same idea, but that's an interesting point, is that it's fairly uncommon for an anime series to be a romance series, period. There's almost always something else going on. And it's why calling something a harem show is a bit inaccurate, because there's often like some sci-fi or some action or whatever that's kind of informing the whole story. Often it's more of a comedy than it is a romance series if it's a harem series. So that is one of the complicated things there. So let's talk about some harem anime, and going to my anime list and pulling up the most popular harem anime as defined by the anime tagged harem for whom the most my anime list members have favorited that or liked that show, right? So it's just Mao. And let's look at some of these top ones and think about that. The very top one is actually High School Double D, which saddens me somewhat, which is a very fan servicey show. It is an almost outright sexual show. In fact, I would say it is sort of outright sexual. Because it is about a character who is very pervy and other pervy characters around him. So that is actually an interesting point, is that, the most popular harem series on Mal, at least, is very much a show about physical attraction. The second one is Oran High School Host Club. And that is primarily a comedy, sort of a dramedy, if you will. And it's a reverse harem, girls surrounded by guys. Importantly, it is about a lot of different things. Oran is one of the shows that manages to hit on lots of different genres at once. It is definitely a multi-genre show. And it's a good example of how the harem concept can be flavoring or spice, or really a structure for a show, as opposed to its genre. Then followed by Nisekoi, which is as I understand it, a light, happy show, right? Followed by Zero no Tsukaima, the familiar of Zero, which is a magical action series, actually magical action franchise. This is focusing on the first series, that is very much about this will they, won't they between the two main characters. And it's less of it's a good example of a harem series where there is a main girl and a main guy, and they are going to, it is about the two of them. There are other guys and girls around, but that there's nothing serious ever going to happen with those characters. It's about these two people, and when they're going to end up together. That's one of the interesting sort of tropes of the genre that was introduced, I think, with Love Hina, most popularly. At least Love Hina, I think, popularized the idea that, yes, it's a harem series, but there's clearly a main girl and a main guy, right? And so then digging into other things like Date A Live, Is This a Zombie, Rosario and Vampire, other things, School Days. So lots of different genres and concepts. Infinite Stratos, which is a mecha series with this harem concept. So they're all in there. It's all possible, right? And I think it's one of the reasons why harem is so popular, why harem shows up so much, because you can have sci-fi harem, fantasy harem. Anything can have a harem in it. And what that does is it adds A, romantic tension, B, sexual tension, potentially, and C, lots of cute girl characters or handsome guy characters that you can brand around and do, plushies of and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really get in the way of a lot of the story concepts out there. Now, if you're doing a gritty, serious detective story, you're probably not going to add a harem concept onto there. But for a lot of things, and especially a lot of anime stories where it tends to be, pop light adventure kind of stories, I think harem works very well. So let's look into that genre a little bit more. And I'm having a tough time using the word genre because it's not really it's technically a genre, maybe. And as Kaminoko in the chat room points out, Tenchi Muyo is considered the first harem anime series. It really codified and popularized the trope and the concept. It was actually born out of a sort of a discussion between some anime folks about Bubblegum Crisis back in the 80s, and which is about a bunch of pretty girls who put on powered armor and fight rogue androids. And one of their numbers is a teenage boy, and they were all these folks were all sitting around chatting about Bubblegum Crisis and saying, what would it be like if they all went to a hot spring, and the boy, the teenage boy, is sitting around and maybe trying to peep on the girls in there, and what if you had a story which focused on him, on Maki, and being surrounded by all these pretty girls? Wouldn't that be who wouldn't want to be surrounded by pretty girls? And that kind of evolved into this idea of, we'll do a story about a guy surrounded by cute girls, which became Tenchi Muyo. Now, Tenchi Muyo is interesting because that was way before the trope, and I agree, Matt. I think trope works better as a term. Hey, Spin to Win, been on for about an hour. So the thing is with Tenchi is that Tenchi is surrounded by pretty girls who are all very much in their own plots. They all have very much their own stuff going on. Two of them in particular are very, very much attracted to him. One physically, the other more romantically. And the others are just kind of around and like him in various ways, more as kind of a brother or a friend. And so one of the nice things is, you know, they're not all sitting around dependent on there. They're not all sitting around waiting for him to marry them, right? In Tenchi is just kind of surrounded by all these girls with plot happening. It's one of the nice things about Tenchi is that you get strong female characters in there in the broad sense of the word strong. And there can be a lot of plot. There can be a lot of things happening. It is more of a science fantasy action story, or at least adventure story, than a lot of your typical harem series, which are, again, you know, modern characters just kind of having sort of comedic stuff, which is kind of nice. And then that kind of evolved, and El Hazar did copy that pattern, and it became a big thing. Then you get the twists like you got in Please Twins and Please Teacher, as Hemhoki brought up, where Please Teacher introduced the idea of a character who is secretly married and has to keep it secret from his like classmates, and this idea of kind of a clandestine harem concept where there are these other girls who may be interested in him, but he can't reciprocate because he actually has a secret marriage. And then Please Twins, I think, was actually quite innovative for the time, because Please Twins introduced the idea that the main character used to play with a neighborhood girl when they were like really, really young. And he has this photo of the two of them together when they were, you know, like 3 years old. And then two girls show up at his house, both claiming to be that girl. And they each have a copy of that photograph. So the question is, which one of these is the real girl? And it's very kind of interesting to kind of delve into that, because then it turns into, this isn't harem in the sense of which girl will I choose. It is, I have kind of chosen one of these girls in my mind, but there's a bigger plot thing going on here about who actually is whom. And of where he is essentially testing the girls in a real way. He's trying to figure out, who is this girl, right? Actually, and because Please Twins, one of them is his sister, and one of them is the neighborhood girl, but they're not sure which one's which. So yeah, it's complicated. So that's kind of this interesting twist now, where you have stories where the characters are like investigating these various girls. You got stuff like Saber Marionette J and R, and the other Saber Marionette shows, which kind of dialed harem up to 11. It is set in a world where there are no women anymore biologically, so men have constructed all these android girls to kind of fill that gap, which leads to girls in this kind of weird societal position, all these android girls. And, you know, delves into some of those things where, I've seen very little Saber Marionette, but one of the, from what I've heard of the staff, they were like, yeah, we were kind of making fun of the fact that obviously harem is this wish fulfillment fantasy for boys. Let's imagine what that entire society would look like. Like let's really think about it. That's not necessarily healthy, right? So yeah, it's very harem, but it's kind of meta harem in a weird way. And that was 90s. I mean, that was very early into the genre. And then it gets more complicated from there, because in the 2000s you got all of the visual novel adaptations, all the romance novel adaptations. Romance visual novel adaptations. And those were almost all dating sims, which were almost all harems in one way or another. Visual novels, at least any that are dating sims, are pretty much straight up harems. And so that just flooded the market with harem and harem-like shows, which kind of diluted the idea, where I think up till that point harem was this fun sort of comedy element that you threw into a show, and now, oh, you have romance that is like that, right? And then yeah, like you say in the Quidditch, you've got this thing now, and I think it's been around for a while, but we're seeing it more obviously now. I think like Sword Art Online, the sort of semi-harem concept, where there are a few girls around who are interested in the main character, and they blush and they flirt a little bit, but there is a clear main girlfriend for him. And I think again that kind of goes back to the Love Hina structure. But it's kind of that whole weird thing. So again, I think that's one of the reasons why harem is so popular and why it is around so much, because there is a lot of room for shifting around that concept, right? For playing with the harem formula, where it can be very light. It can be just, oh, there are a couple of cute girls here that the main character may or may not be interested in, and they're kind of interested in him. Or you can go much stronger with like White Album, Amagami SS, right? Love Plus, right, which is a video game, but still. And yeah, so it's kind of complicated. Anonatu Dimeteru, I think, is the third Please Teacher, Please Twins show, if I'm recalling correctly. Or at least it's spiritually in that world. So yeah, you can do a lot, I think, with harem. And it's one of the complicated things is that I think a lot of people hear harem, they hear the concept, and especially like that word is a little troublesome. But they hear harem, or they hear, oh, it's a guy surrounded by cute girls who like him, and they imagine it's this sort of weird sexual fantasy thing. Maybe the girls are all wearing diaphanous silks or something. And folks kind of shy away from it a little bit and think it's kind of creepy. When actually, if you dig into it, it's really just a spice a lot of times. It's just an element of that concept. And then, yeah, you got stuff like there are mecha series, which are basically harem series. In fact, one of the most popular harem series on these lists is Isekai no Tsukishi Monogatari is the Japanese title, but I'm thinking of the American title because we are not Japanese. But of course, Mal doesn't like that. War on Geminar. There we go. Tenchi spin-off anime series. Still in canon. And that's a fantasy mecha series, straight up, where the main character is surrounded by girls who definitely want him, and where there's actually an in-world thing about how men are like very valuable as breeding stock for pilots, essentially, where you need being able to pilot a mecha is essentially a genetic trait. And so this boy shows up and he's like, oh, he's very powerful. Suddenly a lot of girls would find it very advantageous socially if they had a child with somebody who is that powerful of a pilot. And then I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the show then delves into that a little bit. That is a troublesome space to be in as a society, where one gender or another is kind of treated as breeding stock. And it's not that like they're locked away or anything. It's just that that is, you have these very clear societal expectations of what you're supposed to do, and that is very limiting, and that can be a real problem. But yeah. Yeah, exactly, Derp, is that there's a lot of, people think it's sexualized, and it sometimes is, it often is, but it's not necessarily sexualized. It's also complicated by just the nature of fan service in anime, where people see, a girl prancing around in a bikini and doing the Gynax bounce, and don't recognize that is treated much more lightly in Japan. That is kind of a goofy thing that you throw in there. And yes, it is sexualizing this female character. But it's, it is not quite meant in the upright, titillating way that kind of stuff is in America, generally speaking. And again, you also that issue that it's not necessarily that everyone is just kind of can't wait to get the guy in bed, right? It can be just this liking people, right? So spin to win. That is a fair point. One of the complexities here is that harem shows are popular, and it's one of the things I wanted to get into here is that, you know, you absolutely have this story. You absolutely have this as it's a spice, but it is a very popular spice, and it gets a little old after a while, where that is just kind of a thing in every single show. Fisher asks, is Macross harem? There's Misa and Minmei in that. I know you need 3 females at least for a harem series to work. Yeah, I'd argue it's probably not technically a harem series, because it's really just about, you know, a guy choosing between 2 girls. I think the basic concepts are kind of there, right? It's in a similar territory, but I think it doesn't quite cross the line over into harem. And Liquidus has an interesting point that not a lot of anime get actually like licensed and released like on DVD over here in America. I think, you know, they're all good on Crunchyroll, but in terms of like big releases over here, I think harem ends up being, and I think it's because of that thing where it is, especially when it's a harem series, it's a more strong, it is a harem series more than it is other things. You know, when the harem is central to it, I think it just kind of makes it something that probably is not going to find a massive audience, so you can just kind of leave it over, you know, over there. You kind of leave it as, okay, it's streaming, whatever, that's fine. Certainly on TV, you do not get those things on TV. But then again, a lot of anime concepts just don't go on a TV because they just don't, you know, they're not flashy, they're not exciting, you know, a little too serious, a little whatever. So I think that's the complicated thing, is that. Minmai Hime, yeah, and then plenty of reverse harems out there. Yep, you know, girls surrounded by cute boys, or on High School Host Club, right? You know, what's interesting is that I think then you got shows like Free, which are kind of like a reverse harem without a protagonist, right? Which is all about attractive boys hanging out, and that's an interesting sort of twist on the whole concept. And I think that's one of the reasons why they did Free, is they said, let's do a harem series without the actual central character. And I think that showed that is a very, you know, successful, effective way of doing that. Again, that's not really a harem series. Right? Yeah, I see what you're saying, Liquidus. Is that definitely those harem series do not break into the mainstream over here. And again, I think it's because most of the anime that we get here on TV is action or kids. Right, or both. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The creator at 315, welcome, who's going through the visual novel adaptations of the mid-2000s, and it is a hard time getting those right. It is very, very difficult to adapt a branching storyline to a linear medium, right? It's just, there's a lot there, and you're never going to please all the fans. It's just really, really complicated. Would you say that harems are more abundant than reverse harems? Absolutely. There's no question. You look at the numbers, you look at the amount out there, there are absolutely more, you know, boys surrounded by girls harem anime than girls surrounded by boys. Boys love is different, right? Now we're talking about harem, not just cute boy shows. So Restaurant Paradiso is not harem. But yeah, there's huge amounts there. Canon, yep. From what I've seen of Canon, the anime did a very good job. Yeah, Air and Clannad, I think, did a very good job from what I've heard. But it's really hard because, again, there's just, how do you structure things? How do you make this work? And how do you take characters that just existed in this in this more imaginative medium, right, and bring them in. I think one of the problems with visual novel adaptations, particularly, is that it is so close to animation. You know, with a novel or a manga, or whatever, your imagination is filling in gaps, and so the anime is never going to be exactly like that. And so, you know, the mind can accept that, okay, here are the colors they're using, here's the camera angles they're using. With a visual novel, it's so close it's so, you know, almost an anime series. I think it's a lot harder to go there. Guys, I have got so much anime on my to-watch list. I appreciate the recommendations. You know, feel free to recommend things, but just be aware. Right. So yeah, there's a lot there. It's very harem is yeah, and I think it's interesting that point that I think the visual novel adaptations really, I think that kind of sour people on harem. I think it's one of the reasons why folks are tired of harem now, because visual novels just flooded the medium with it, and you get this problem where folks are just exhausted. But what do you do, right? They are clearly successful. Now I think one of the different takes you can have is kind of like for your Idolmaster and Love Live and those things, I think are also kind of similar in that, again, there's no protagonist around them, but it's a bunch of cute girls or a bunch of cute guys, and you can just kind of imagine being their boyfriend / girlfriend. And that's, I think, really that might be where this ends up getting taken, in the sense that there will always be harem, but I think that is where folks are kind of latching on and saying, okay, what if we did this? What if we went in that direction? K-On! I think also similarly is a harem series without the protagonist, in a way. Not intentionally necessarily, but it's a way of saying, oh, here are a bunch of girls hanging out, and I can imagine them being, you know, I can imagine hanging out with them. I can imagine dating one of them in one way or another. So yeah, I think harem's an interesting thing. So getting back to that question of if you wanted to get into harem, where might you start? And that's a complicated question. Let me see here. I want to pull up this list here real quick. Excuse me. So a few harem that definitely get recommended a lot, and again, here's where we get into complicated territory, because some of these things are, yeah, kind of harem technically, sort of in a way, but not really. And I'm gonna have to limit myself to things I've actually watched, right? That's always difficult. Yeah, because that's not okay. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of weirdness in here. So, some that I think, and again, I would say Tenchi Muyo is a good place to start. It's because it hits so many different notes. You get sci-fi, fantasy action, you get a little romance, you get a lot of comedy, you get some dramatic moments. I think it's a good place to start. Plus, you have the original OVA, which is only 6 episodes long. So you can kind of get a really good feel for that in there. That's where you can start there. Other than that, I think if you want over-the-top ridiculous comedy in your harem, I would recommend trying Love Hina. It is very much a product of its time. It has that comedy trope where the main character is constantly stumbling across the main character's, the girl character's naked, and then they punch him violently. You know, they react violently to this, even though it's obviously accidental. And that's just kind of a running gag throughout the entire series. So some folks just really find that difficult. Other folks just love it. So just be aware of that. Toradora. So I've not seen Toradora, but I've heard very good things about Toradora being a much more of a romantic comedy, right? But more of a more focusing on that relationship between the two of them. But again, I think Toradora is one of those shows where it's, you know, it is clear that you have these two main characters centrally. But yeah, that's one to focus on, to try and check out. Let me scroll back through here. I know there were one or two here that I was like, oh yeah, that's a good place to start. Clannad. What do you guys think of To Love Ru? Because I've not seen, I've seen like clips and like a first episode of one of the To Love Ru shows, but it just never really did anything for me. So I don't know, but To Love Ru seems to be high on the list. Again, there's a thought. Let's see here. Yeah, but I'd start there. I'd start with Tenchi, love Hina, and then some of the more modern stuff, and just try a few things. So to answer Smug Pickle's question, are there any mech anime with harem elements or vice versa? Absolutely. And I would agree that Evangelion is a bit of a stretch. It's not really about, you know, I mean, Evangelion is actually kind of parodying harem in a sense, where it is about a boy who's constantly pushing away all of these girls. So I think it is kind of parodying harem. Ooh, Oh My Goddess. That's a good one. Yeah, I would say if you want to try harem, something that's a little more. What I love about Oh My Goddess is how sweet the relationship is in Oh My Goddess. These two characters obviously love each other, and then they're being fought over by other characters. But there's a very strong core to their relationship, and it is there from the beginning. You know, it doesn't, oh, well, I kind of grew to like him over time. No, they're very close. And I think that really works very well in Oh My Goddess, or Oh My Goddess. Okay, so heavy sexualization of the female characters. Gotcha. Yeah, I've not seen Sekirei. So, back to the question about mecha anime with harem elements. Yes, as I said, Infinite Stratos, War on Geminar. So War on Geminar is technically not the only Tenchi series that's mecha, because Dual Parallel Troubled Adventure is a spin-off series that is part of the Tenchi universe. Or the Tenchi multiverse, really, in a way. So yeah, Dual Parallel Troubled Adventure is also technically Tenchi, and it is definitely a harem anime. Much more harem, actually, than, say, Evangelion. And then Razafon, I think, has some harem elements to it. Very, very lightly. Godaner, I wouldn't say Full Metal Panic. I don't see harem in Full Metal Panic. Aquarian Evol goes in its own category. Right? It goes off in its own way. Its own place. That is a whole weird thing. I mean, you want to get weird, you get shows like, say, Yurikuma Arashi, Lesbian Bear Storm, which is sort of this it's pretty much all Yuri harem, but it's all these characters all interacting, you know, all going in and out of each other's sort of harem spheres. But I think you could qualify Yurikuma Arashi as harem. The weird thing about that show is there are naked girls all over the opening credits of that show, and pretty sexualized imagery of those girls. And then the show has almost none of that. One or two sequences, but it's not that, weirdly enough. So yeah, that's, I think, a pretty good sort of overview of harem and what it is and where it can go. So as always, thank you all very much for being involved in for this great debate. We'll be back actually in 2 weeks with more great debate, and we will see you then. Oh, so the Creator 315 is an interesting question. I would argue that in a harem series, it's the protagonist that's surrounded by people who are interested in them, whereas the protagonist of Utena is Utena, right? So there's absolutely a harem aspect to the show, but it's really harem around Anthe in a weird way. Yeah, I would disagree there, Daniel Montero. I don't think Knights of Sidonia is really meant to be harem. I think it has elements similar to a harem series. I've only read the manga, not watched the anime. So I don't think I think it's going in a different direction than harem. Well, I think Liquidus is that technically Geminar is a spin-off of Tenchi, right? I mean, the different world, different characters. Yes, it ties back in, but so does Duel. So nice, Black Road Saga. I'll be hitting Utena soon once I finish Gunbuster, and I think there's something else before I get to that, but I'm getting close to Utena. Need to find somebody to watch Utena with. Utena feels like a show that I will. It'll be easier for me to watch that if I have somebody else to kind of understand it with, to talk about too. Because Utena, I think, rewards analysis, even during the show, and discussing the symbolism and what's going on and all that kind of stuff. All right. Yeah, I wish I could. Unfortunately, Evan's really busy, and I haven't been able to nail down a time to actually sit down with him and talk, much less watch anime. So, sadly, no. All right, let us move over to Otaku no Cooking. So, as I mentioned, I think last week, Otaku no Cooking will actually be going through this manga cookbook. Today, we're going to make some rabbit apples. Kind of weird. But yeah, that is kind of the let's do that, and meanwhile we're going to transition over to a cartoon for a few minutes while I switch over to the other camera. So the video might cut out for a few minutes, the stream might actually die for like a few seconds, but it'll come back, provided everything works over here. So I'm going to be back in a few minutes. Meanwhile, an old cartoon. Whoops, 1 second while I resize that. There we go.
What do you mean, missing?
That's what I said, Chief. 2 rocket boosters are missing from Complex 4. We've surveyed the whole area. They're just not here.
Well, find them and report back to me.
We've looked high and low. They're just not...
That's a problem in some order. Now, how in places can 2 boosters be missing? Why, they're as big as a house. Chief here.
Sorry to report, sir, but...
Now what?
Well, as I was saying, sir, engineering reports 3 air drills in a tunnel bore are stolen from Complex 6.
Stolen? What do you mean stolen?
We've been looking for a week.
A week? Why in places didn't you call me sooner?
Well, we thought we could locate them, but...
But what? This is serious business. International sabotage. Listen, I'll see that someone's head rolls for this. Come in. All right, keep after it. Keep me posted. Yeah, now what do you want?
I guess I have another one.
I guess I don't follow you, General. You got another what?
2 more rocket boosters missing. And a remote control unit.
Oh, no.
As far as we can figure, they've been missing for 10 days. Pick them up on our inventory.
It seems like everything's breaking loose around here. Get me head of security. Get me the Inspector General. Get me a bottle of aspirin tablets.
National Bank building! What's happening?
Somebody do something! It's going to fall!
Hey, my life savings in there!
Oh! My money!
The bank!
Oh!
Hey!
Dad, look. What on earth is that?
It looks like...
The bank building from Earth.
It is.
It's the Space National Bank building.
I've never seen anything like that.
Aye, if it weren't for the rest of you, I'd think I had a drop too many. This is the Evening Star. Come in.
Professor Mace, somebody made off with the Space National Bank.
Now who's crazy?
But how, Chief? I don't understand.
Apparently some clever gang of crooks dug a hole and attached rocket boosters to the foundation.
Sir, we just saw it pass the Evening Star.
Great. Then you know the trajectory. We've got to get it back.
Frankly, sir, we didn't have time to take any reading.
Get going, Scott. There's no time to lose.
What about the Space Force?
They're out on maneuvers. I'm depending on you, Scott. Out.
Taurus.
Don't say it, Skipper. Let's go chase the Space National Bank. Stardust is ready for 0700 departure, Scott.
0700 it is.
Clear the tube for blastoff.
A-OK here, Lord Dusty.
Two doors open. Doors open. Umbilical go.
Cabin pressure, go.
Ready and counting. 10, 9, 8, trajectory, go. 7, 6,
Starting rockets.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off.
Okay. Do believe we're back with Otaku no Cooking. Welcome everyone to the first episode of the new Otaku no Cooking, where today I am going to be making some appetizers straight out of the manga cookbook, and I'll try to throw up some images here of what I'm actually making. These are little apple slices that have little rabbit ears on them, very cute. And we're going to learn how to do that here today. I'm just going based off of the instructions in the book, and we'll see how this works out. So I've got a couple of apples here, and I'm just going to do this. These are, of course, Fuji apples. What else would you use to make cute little, little things there with? 1 second while I shuffle some things around here, so I can kind of see multiple things at once. All right, so you want an apple that is relatively even, right? So you want one that is not lopsided and will fall all over the place. So that's what I kind of tried to go for here. Obviously, fruit is not always perfectly shaped, but that's fine. So I'm going to start with this one, which is a little lopsided, but should be fine. And I'm going to use just a steak knife to cut this with. You could use larger, smaller knives, whatever, but I find this is a good place to start. It's large enough to cut through something the size of an apple, but also small enough to cut in and get into some detail work. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to just go ahead and cut this into pieces. They recommend cutting into eighths, so 8 pieces here, unless you got a really small apple, which you cut into fourths. So this will definitely be I think something for eighths. So I just cut this like this. Oh, got a seed there. Again, a larger knife would cut through this a little more easily. So then I like to move these this way. And then actually I'm going to core them or remove the seeds right now. And that just means cutting in sort of a V shape on both sides very slowly, because you can cut through this into your fingers. So you go very slowly and carefully. There we go. Again, each of these will be cut in half again. But for now, we will just do that. If you have an area outside, you might try to save these seeds and plant them and see if an apple tree would grow. That might happen. Okay. Oh, went a bit too far there. Okay, I think that went down. Yeah, I think we can save that. But we have a lot here. So again, we're going to cut this. I prefer to cut these this way up because they're more stable. Okay. And we may not even go to that other apple. It's just nice to have a spare. All right, so here's the beginning of our slices. And now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to cut a little bit here just to make these stand up. Because they're going to basically stand like this. And then we're going to have the ears in the back. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off these parts, these edges, so they'll stand up like that. Looking for kind of that flat shape. Come on, get off of there. Let's try a few things. Let's go with a flat shape there. Nope, that's falling over. Because I didn't go far enough. Alright. Let me cut off some more. Ah. Clearly my this particular knife needs some sharpening. Did not realize that when I pulled it out of the drawer. Okay. So there's the beginning of our rabbits, our usagi. Okay. Oops. There. And then now it gets a little complicated. Well, no, not complicated. Here's where we get into the meat of the actual technique. All right. So what they want us to do is cut a V in the apple, kind of from the middle of the top down to the edge here. Right, from the middle of the top down to the edge. So I'm going to try that. Again, you want to be careful here because you don't want to cut all the way through. You're kind of scoring it. And because rabbit ears are pointed, you want to make sure that you come down to a point on there. Alright, so there we go. And then we're going to peel up the apple, just like that. Essentially peel it halfway up to that bit. Oops, I cut off a little bit of the, that's a shame, a little bit of the ear. Then we're going to go back in there and cut and remove that middle bit. And there we go. There are our rabbit ears. That's pretty cute. Again, I cut into here a little bit, but there we go. There's our rabbit ears. Let's try that again. So we're going to cut a V shape, fairly deep, and then another V shape. Again, this is not complicated. This is the entire thing. I'm not making a big dish out of this. Just a little appetizer. Something that could go into a bento. And then we're going in. Again, this is a little complicated because you don't want to go so deep in. You're cutting out a bunch of the apple itself. But you also want to cut in deep enough that you can actually get out some of that. Okay, there we go. Not too bad. I tore up a little bit of the back of that, but that's not a bad little bunny rabbit there. There's another. So let's try this again. Again, just practice. There's actually a soft spot here, so I'm going to come back here. Starting at the center, cutting back, starting at the center, cutting back, making sure we go all the way to make that V. And I can tell this feels like the kind of thing where, you know, once you do it a bunch of times, you get a much better feel for how deep to cut and how to run that. Cut into cut into that a little bit. That's annoying. And I'm notching that ear. Unacceptable. Okay. But there's our little rabbit. Cute. So, let's see here. Ooh, a little bit shaved off there. So, it's going to be easier to cut if there's a shallow edge versus a very curved edge. So I'm going to go over here for this one. That's a good thing to figure out, I think. that you want to go with a shallower curve on that. Good to know. Again, going very carefully with this knife because it would be very easy to cut yourself. But I can't honestly see a better way of doing that. Okay. Still didn't cut in far enough, so cut those deeper. Maybe get in there with the tip of the knife. Pull it out. Ooh, there we are. That's a nice little rabbit. Shave off a bit of the... Ooh, okay. The tip did break off a little bit. Right, so again, looking at the curve here, they're both pretty much the same. I'm going to start there. But we definitely want to go as shallow as possible. Yeah. Deep cuts. Reasonably so. Reasonably deep cuts, so to speak. So yeah, this is not complicated, but it's definitely it's a technique, right? You're not just throwing ingredients in a pan, you're really cutting this in a specific way, which requires some thought. Okay, I think that might just be an aspect of my apple. That little bit on the bottom is always breaking off. I think there's just a weak spot there, maybe. Let's see, is that true? Maybe not. Okay, so again, shallower edge. So we'll do that one last time, just to see how much our technique has improved. So curve down. A lot of these things take practice. It's not going to be great on your first time or even your fifth time, but you do it over and over, and you get a sense for it. And before you know it, you're where you want to be. Right? Shave that up. Yeah, so as I cut into that, I am tending to okay, so that's interesting. So it is basically the shape of the blade, because this side of the blade is thicker. As I'm cutting up, I'm tending to push up this side, which causes that side to break down there. So that is a problem. So you want a thinner knife, ideally, for this. Can I pull that out? There we go. There's your little rabbit platter there. And I think they were saying here that you can not sure. You can dip the slices into diluted salt water to make that work. To keep them from browning too quickly. But there we go. There's a little rabbit from the side, from the top, and let's look at that on the actual thing. Oops. They're a little uneven, but there we go. There's your rabbit platter. So I hope you found that useful and helpful. We'll be moving on to other Japanese techniques in later episodes. Oh, there they go. The rabbits all fell over, but you gotta straighten them up. That's only right. All right, thank you all very much for joining me for this episode of Otaku no Cooking. Again, short and sweet and easy. And hopefully next time you are providing things for your friends or family for food, you can make the apples look a little bit more interesting, a little more appealing. So thank you all for joining me, and we will see you some other time. That is it, guys. That is it for this week. Thank you all very much for joining me. I didn't do the final slice. That's all right. But yeah, that is the new Otaku no Cooking. I'll probably add some flavor to it, some changes over time. But that is that. So yeah, thank you all very much for being here this week. As I mentioned prior, in later weeks we're going to have just make sure. Okay. Yep. In later weeks we're going to go ahead and do something different. We'll see how that goes. I've got a bunch of stuff planned for this coming up week in terms of giveaways. It'll be fun. So hope to see you later on. Take care, guys. Bye.